Pokemon has been around for 23 years now and was originally predicted by Nintendo to be a flop. The original Red and Green games, inspired by Satoshi Tajiri's childhood hobby of collecting insects, took him and his team 6 years to make for the original Game Boy, a system that many thought was dying at that point. Believe it or not, it had a slow start when it originally launched in Japan, but several months later it exploded and eventually became the multi-billion-dollar juggernaut of a franchise that we know today. The idea of an RPG where you could capture creatures and interact with other real-world players to complete your collection and flex your battling skills was unlike anything the world had ever seen at that time. It's a great idea that has survived for over 2 decades, invented the subgenre of creature collectathon games, and generated an empire of anime, plushes, toys, cards, and countless other merchandise. This is far from the flop Nintendo predicted it would be, and it's certainly not the fad that many analysts in the 90s claimed it was. With all that being said, the core Pokemon games definitely have a major problem. I've been playing Pokemon since the original Red and Blue versions, pouring hundreds of hours into the games each time a new generation would release. My Ultra Sun game has a living Pokedex that spans the available 807 Pokemon. I'm not saying this to flex on everyone, but to show you how much time I've put into the series. Believe me when I say that the core Pokemon games are the kings of give and take when it comes to features. And no, I don't mean this in the way that we see in most modern games where they purposely remove things and charge you for them later on, or make the game more grindy to nudge you into microtransactions. Pokemon will just completely remove great features for no apparent reason. Let's look at this in chronological order. The jump from Red and Blue to Gold and Silver was amazing. Everything you loved about Pokemon was in Gold and Silver version, but on steroids. We got a new region, 100 new Pokemon, day and night cycle, the special stats split into special attack and special defense, there was breeding, friendship evolutions, daily and weekly events, item holding, moves that change the weather in battle, shiny Pokemon, a cell phone to re-battle trainers and get tips for rare Pokemon, the ability to trade Pokemon from Gen 1 to your current game, a mom bank account that would buy you stuff to customize your bedroom, a continuation of the story from Red and Blue. We even got the entire Kanto region back to see what our favorite NPCs were up to, and probably more things I can't recall at the moment. Gold and Silver didn't just raise the bar for Pokemon, it took that bar and threw it to the moon. I can quite honestly say that no other Pokemon games have pushed the series as far as Gold and Silver did. Fast forward a couple years and along comes Ruby and Sapphire. We get some interesting stuff as far as mechanics go. Double battles, abilities, overworld, weather, hidden bases, the Versus Seeker, Battle Tower, contests, ribbons, and of course a new region with new Pokemon. But this all came at a cost. You couldn't transfer your older Pokemon to Ruby and Sapphire. There was no day and night cycle, no cell phone, no mommy piggy bank, no more revisiting old regions. At this point, I began to fall off the series. Overall, the games just felt like more of a downgrade to me coming off of Gen 2. All of the changes I saw from Red and Blue to Gold and Silver made sense as far as improving the core gameplay, mechanics, and story. While Ruby and Sapphire definitely brought along some great staples for the series, I couldn't wrap my head around some of the choices. Why drop the day and night cycle? Why can't I trade over my Pokemon from Gold and Silver? And who the hell asked for beauty contests? It definitely wasn't me. I eventually gave these games a shot and they were good, just not as good as I was expecting them to be. Along comes Diamond and Pearl, the start of the 4th generation. Many quality of life improvements and changes from these games laid the foundation for all the core games after it. Just being on the DS hardware was a godsend in itself. Gone were the days of link cables and wireless adapters. You could just trade and battle Pokemon locally or, for the first time, online. You could even transfer your Gen 3 Pokemon to yourself using the GBA slot in the DS. Having the second screen for Diamond and Pearl wasn't groundbreaking, but it was a very welcome feature that brought the convenience of all the apps in the game that ranged from a daycare checker, clock, calculator, friendship checker, pedometer, move tester, and many more useful functions. Mechanically, we got the physical and special split, which is by far one of the best changes Pokemon has ever seen, as well as the underground and the minigames that came with that. The day and night cycle that was MIA for Gen 3 made a comeback and also had morning and evening times. You could also customize your own Pokeballs with seals that gave them certain visual effects when you would send your Pokemon into battle. While the story and region weren't that memorable for me, I could definitely appreciate the Pokemon designs that came with the 4th generation, and all of the new mechanics and features felt like the next step in the right direction for the series. By the time Black and White were on the horizon, I was questioning some of the decisions Game Freak was making. It didn't make much sense to release them on the DS, with the 3DS only being a few months away from coming out. Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver, I felt like they had done everything they could with the series on the DS. But I'm a sucker for Pokemon, so I bit the bullet and I get Black version. There were smart choices here, like how you could only encounter new Pokemon until you unlock the National Pokedex, and for the first time, you have a sympathetic antagonist that worked really well with the story. It was great to not have a team of mustache-twirling villains for once. I love the fact that N simply had strong ideals that weren't necessarily wrong, and it created this gray space in what is usually a black and white plot, pun intended. Outside of that, nothing really stands out for me. There was a Sea Gear, which was really cool, but honestly, it just felt like it could have been an app in the Poketech instead of being an entire replacement. The triple and rotational battles were more tedious than fun, and the introduction of combination attacks was more of a novelty than an improvement. At least now your TMs had infinite uses, and the seasonal weather cycle gave the game a bit more immersion, but again, we get things at the cost of others. No more Pokemon following you around, no more Poketech, contests, Pokeball seals, or that cell phone that I just got back in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Time skip to 2013, and we're finally getting Pokemon games on the 3DS. The DS era felt like it dragged on forever, especially when we got Black and White 2, after the 3DS had already been launched. Everyone was excited to see what could be done with the series on the new hardware and what changes Game Freak would make to the series. If there was ever a time to shake things up and give Pokemon a complete makeover, this was it. X and Y brought us the much needed fairy type and the not so needed mega evolutions, along with a boon to the visual department. Pokemon were no longer colorful sprites, but now 3D models with improved animations. You could gain experience points by capturing Pokemon in addition to battling them. You could finally customize your character, the Global Link and Pokebank made their debut, and outside of that, there wasn't anything too meaningful. Yes, the O-Powers are convenient. Yes, Horde encounters were good for grinding out EV points. Yes, Super Training was EV training for dummies. And yes, feeding your Pokemon Poffins and then petting them is both immersive and weird at the same time. But most of these mechanics weren't naturally integrated into the main gameplay loop or story, but more of side things for you to do. Pokemon as a whole was pretty formulaic at this point. New region, new Pokemon, new attacks, new abilities, and some side games and mechanics at the cost of previous ones. Also, the story for X and Y was very bland, especially after coming off Black and White. Side note, Poketech, Pokegear, Pokeball seals, and cell phone are still MIA. Time jump again to the 7th gen, Sun and Moon, and I swear Game Freak is just making changes for the sake of making changes. We don't have gyms anymore, we have island challenges, where the battles take a backseat to whatever mission the trial captain decides to put you through, sending you off to do some jank only to come back later and fight them anyway. We get these things called Ultra Beasts, which Game Freak swears aren't Pokemon, but they have entries in the Pokedex, can be caught with Pokeballs, and can be used for battles, so now I'm questioning how the hell did they even define what a Pokemon is anymore, and now we have Z Crystals that let you either breeze through the game or get your face kicked in if you battle online. Aside from Hyper Training, any actual improvement to the series is so far and few between that I don't even feel like getting into what we got and what we lost with Gen 7. So here we are at the dawn of Gen 8, and once again, Game Freak giveth and Game Freak taketh away. Now, I know Pokemon Let's Go is a side game, it has a lot of stuff I didn't like, but it had some things that I did like. They brought back the ability for any Pokemon to follow you around, and there were certain rideable Pokemon you could interact with, and that's not new. That was in some of the older games, but this was kind of like the next level of that. And then also you could see the wild Pokemon in the overworld. I wish that stayed. That was probably the best thing about Pokemon Let's Go. You didn't have to waste your time with the random encounters. You could, encounter the Pokemon you wanted to encounter. You could avoid all Pokemon entirely if you were slick enough. And, it boggles my mind how they do stuff like this. This game, this series, like I said, is the king of give and take. There's so many great features we've had over the years that have just been snatched up out of the palm of our hands, and this series could be so much better if we kept the features that were good, that worked, that people liked, and then just started whittling away at all the superfluous stuff, right? Would be amazing. Would be great. Would be nice. I wouldn't know. This is Game Freak. They make decisions that don't make sense. Pokemon that are not Pokemon. Gosh, who knows? Who knows what goes on in their minds? But then again, what would I know? I'm just some guy on the internet.